Welcome to Aging Graciously and Hilariously podcast. I am your co-host, Sean Smith, and I am here today with the lovely Bridget Smith. Say hello, Bridget.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, we have a very special guest in our studio. We have Abdul Rahman Ibn Muhammad, and I know I said a mouthful, but it's a powerful name for a very powerful personality. Today's topic is called Transplanting Resilience, and we're talking about healing, hustle, and humanity. And I'm going to introduce Abdul Rahman right now. Say hello, Abdul.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
And I want Abdul to begin and just tell us a little bit about himself and his company and what he does, and we'll go further.
Okay. All right. So a little bit about myself. I am a social worker. I'm married. I've been married for the last 22 years to my wife, Dr. Deshel Muhammad. I'm a father of three. I have a 30-year-old daughter, Amina, a 20-year-old daughter, Amira, and a 18-year-old son, Amir, and my grandson, Cairo, as well. So, I'm very much interested in being a great father, being a family man, but also being somebody that's has an impact in our community. And so 20 years ago, I started my agency, My People Clinical Services, with the desire to be able to offer services to our community from a Afrocentric perspective, from a people that understand you perspective, from somebody that cares about what the outcome's going to be, and I'm kind of wanting to do it my way, the way that I feel like my father and people in our community, most needed at the time. So when I first started My People, I really wanted to do something with fatherhood. Being that I was a young father, I thought that other men in the community could benefit from groups and case management, any kind of support around fatherhood. Unfortunately, in those early years, not a lot of people were interested, like, agencies and all that kind of, they weren't interested in making referrals for fatherhood. So I had to pivot very quickly and come up with some new ideas. And so we started a mentoring program, and that mentoring program, at one point, we probably had over 100 mentors serving like 200 to 250 young people in the greater Hartford community. So it was a pretty big mentoring program. We also did in-home therapy. We did some work in foster care. And over the years, at My People, we've probably had, 50 different programs in different areas. So 20 years later, we created a nonprofit arm of My People Clinical Services, My People Community Services, and now we do supportive housing for young adults. I created a curriculum and 4 initiatives under a program called the Manhood Tree. So we still work with fathers, but we really want to focus a little bit more on the man in father, not just fathers, because I feel like over the years, what I've seen is that people use fatherhood as a euphemism for, like, they see fathers almost like they have this idea of fathers almost like they're not men. And I wanted to be able to get back to the core and say, like, no, they're men. These are, when you're dealing with them, they're men and they're fathers, and we have to still deal with them as men. And so I created the Manhood Tree so men would have a space to be able to talk about some of the trauma and different issues they've gone through throughout their life cycle. We also have the Fatherhood Monologues, which is a performance group where people write stories about being a father or being fathered. We have our Men's Health Initiative, and then we also have the Manhood Tree podcast that we do every Tuesday at 6:00. Our agency also still does stuff with foster care. We help foster people that are interested in being foster parents become foster parents. So we do the assessments and work with them to get through the whole process with DCF. We have a couple of fatherhood programs. We have a program called Launch. One of the things that's very important to us right now is transition. Most of the services that we offer are for young people between the ages of 18 to 24 years old, and they're in a constant transition during that point. And so they're really, what we're doing as an organization is developing strategies and ways to help them make their transitions in the best possible way. And so my wife actually is developing an app right now. It's called Future You, and the app is really going to help them kind of like identify what the best course of action for them in the future is. So is it to go to college and take these classes, or is it to go into the workforce? Are there some things that you need to work on with your mental health? It's a number of assessments and supports that'll allow for a young person to kind of like get off to a good start. And so that's really our main focus right now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's still in the early phases,
Right.
but this summer we're going to be working with CWP for what they sponsor youth employment for the summer. So we're going to be working with them and piloting that app with over 1,400 kids this summer. And so by the end of the summer, we'll have a much better grasp on how well the app works, things we need to tweak. And but ultimately, this is version 1. With an app, you'll do version 1, 2, 3, whatever. And our goal is to be able to help these children. I think back to when I was young, when my wife was young, when she was young, she was smart. She was somebody that was smart. They had the capability to go to a 4-year school, but her parents didn't necessarily have the money. And so she ended up having to go to a 2-year college, and then slowly over the years work her way through to, she finally got her doctorate degree. And so, but it's kind of like, that first start off, because it was a little bit slow, almost deterred her, where she might have given up. And she said, I'm going to go into the workforce and focus on the workforce instead of focus on getting my degree and being able to do maybe a higher level job in the future. So she went through that process. And I think that's kind of like her drive behind creating it, because if kids know what they want to do, know where they got to go, and have the support to help them, somebody that's intelligent but doesn't have access to resources won't miss out on all the opportunities they have. So
I think that's good.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So we're really looking forward to that. And then, of course, I also do a lot of training with the Department of Children and Families and other organizations around the state around fatherhood engagement. I feel like it's a huge area. I should have brought my book. I wrote a book called 21 Levels of Fatherhood Engagement to help people who need to work with fathers to think about the deepness of how that relationship could be, even from, a social worker standpoint or whatever. You want to still be able to go from greeting them to actually checking in on them and caring about them and wanting the best for them. And so that the book is a tool for social workers or anybody working with fathers to use in their practice or in their work.
So when you talk about the connection, part of what we're doing here with the podcast and what our movement is about is we're building a connection, or trying to mend a bridge, right?
Yeah.
Or build a bridge with a connection between an aging population and a young population. And our thinking in that is, if a young person can find a way to try to see through the eyes of the senior with that communication, it's almost like having, I hate to use the term, but having like foresight into what the world will become, right? Your world will become. Yeah. Because here's an older person that may have seen the cycle of life, if the cycle of life is, I don't know, with 20 years or 25 years, you're talking to somebody who may be 60 years old. This person's seen the cycle of life. Right. And they can give you valuable insight, scope, and perspective that you're not necessarily privy to as a young person. I think sort of a phenomenon that we've been experiencing in the world right now is that, younger people tend to want to shut themselves off from older people and disassociate themselves with as much tradition and as possible and as much convention as possible, when I don't think that's necessarily a solution. I think the solution to a lot of the problems that we're facing in our society is to come back and reunite, reconnect, and embrace some of the tradition and some convention, and that will try to alleviate some of the problems. So I definitely commend you for the work that you're doing in that aspect, in that regard.
Well, one of the things about that is the young people have to realize that one day, if they're lucky, they're going to be in the older people's shoes. That's just how it goes. It's not like you can stay young forever. And then I think the other piece about it is that to be able, I think right now the world is moving faster than ever. I feel like every day, from social media to television to whatever you're listening, there's so much information that's being thrown at young people these days. They have information with them all the time. They're on their phones all the time, and they don't realize, over the last few months, I've been like disconnecting from social media, television, because I feel a little overwhelmed with all the information. Every day, you hear something about Trump. Every day you hear of something negative. And so that stuff starts bogging you down. So I think that young people, for the first time in our lives, they get more information than they ever could have gotten in their life, and could get connected to anybody they want to, and more so now than any other time. And so I just think that it's got to be difficult for young people, but I think that if they could have that connection to older people, it could allow for them to be able to speak and learn from somebody that's already been through some things themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Some sort of like some intelligent direction.
Yeah, of course.
And I want to ask a question regarding the fatherhood program and the mentoring program and the service that you provide. Mm-hmm. Because we find ourselves in a time in society where there are a lot of older people, mm-hmm. right, grandparents who now have to take on the responsibility of raising grandchildren.
Yes.
And I want to know if you have any programs or anything that kind of gives guidance and assistance for people who may have already raised their children, may have been empty nesters, but now find themselves in a position where they have to become full-time or even part-time parents again.
Yeah. We don't have anything particular, but today I did a presentation and somebody mentioned that their grandmother raised them. They were talking about that. And I think you just made a great point about the need for maybe a little support around this new generation, because you can't raise kids the same way now that you might have raised them 20 years ago.
Right.
And so I think that that might be a new program we need to add, because that's an interesting service. I know there are services in the community specifically for like grandparents, but I don't know exactly what they do that would help them to kind of like better parent this generation of children.
Well, yeah, and we use the term grandparent, but I'm not old enough to be a grandfather yet. But what about Yaya and a Pop?
Call it whatever you want. You got some grandchildren?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some babies that we have to be responsible for.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason, part of the reason I ask, and I never wasn't my intention to talk about this when we came on, but sometimes conversations get guided. Mm-hmm. Is we found ourselves recently thrust in a position where we're having to look after, our grandbabies, mm-hmm. Because our granddaughter's father, he went through a tough patch.
Right.
He just, he broke down and, he just decided that he didn't want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up taking his own life.
Sorry to hear that.
And, yeah, me too. And it's very tragic because he was a young man with so much potential.
Right.
So much potential.
Mm-hmm.
And, doing everything we could to, try to, show him love and mentorship and guidance and, to help him along in his journey. And we, as men, we try to, we have that responsibility, right? We have the responsibility of teaching the younger ones and giving and doing and sharing. And as parents, as anyone who's raised children, we all have that responsibility.
Right.
And sometimes difficult for us is that not being able to reach, and we weren't, just feeling like we weren't able to reach, and and I know that God have His own plan for everybody, so we don't know what that plan may be, but definitely know and recognize that there's a need for that type of guidance, that type of program, that type of somebody to take leadership and teach in those regards, because I know we're not alone in that.
Right.
Many who find themselves now having to look after the young ones.
Mm-hmm. I think you're making so what I was just talking about before, all of the information, all of the kind of like exposure that young people are getting, I think it really enhances their mental health, like in a negative way.
Absolutely.
And so I think there's more people with an increase in depression, increase in having different diagnosable mental illness based on how the world is right now. And I think it's a phenomenon we're seeing probably for the first time, where like you said, young men are choosing to not be here anymore, are choosing to not take medication even though they need it, or choosing not to go to therapy or something like that. And I think in the past we might have been able to talk them through it, but I think now, just like we were just talking about men's health, when we say men's health, we're not just talking about physical health. That mental health is also another thing. And so I think that really, this conversation is good because maybe we'll be the people to create it. Maybe somebody that's watching will create something, because I think that it's a combination of, yes, the grandparents may need some support in the area of, loss, because it's not always like a total loss in the sense of they die. It's like a loss of a person you raised up. So you raise them a certain way, you support them a certain way, and they stop being that way. Mm-hmm. They became something else. And so you're trying to figure out, well, what happened? And what happened was, due to everything that's going on, their mental health deteriorated and they weren't able to be the person that they were brought up to be. So we haven't accounted for all of these other things that are happening in our society. And I think that what we're seeing, the outcome is the tragic loss of somebody. And either you literally lose them or you lose them as they were. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So they're like out in the world, kind of like trying to operate, but it's just, and there's no quick answer to it. Mm-hmm. Like the real answer in some cases is years and years of therapy, years and years of being in groups, years and years of taking medication. And a lot of people, they don't want to hear that. They don't, a lot of men, we talk about men, or even women, because this is happening to women too, though.
Yes, it is.
They say, I don't want to take no medication. Mm-hmm. And so the one thing about mental illness is that mental illness is not going to cure itself. It's not going to stop just because when people have mental illness and they don't want to take the medication, they're self-medicating some way. Mm-hmm. So now they're smoking weed. And, sometimes the weed they get might have something else in it. Mm-hmm. So now, and believe it or not, that weed with something else in it enhances the mental illness. Mm-hmm. And so now they become dependent. So it's like they don't realize they're self-medicating because they're using something else other than the pills. Right. And so the pills come with the therapy that would help them to kind of work their way through it. And so this is a unique time in history where, we have access to everything, but having everything sometimes is not the best thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can literally reach out and touch anybody you want, but it's like just how rapidly it happens. Mm-hmm. I literally stopped watching the news because every night on the news is something bad. It's like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And I'm like, I need to hear positive stuff. I need to hear good stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I felt my mental health going down. Right before I go to bed, I watch the news and I'm dreaming about all of the bad stuff. And so I feel like our young people I think like you said, so our generation is like, we feel like, oh, we just raised our kids, we're good. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is, nah, you about to do round two. And I think that can have a pull on you because in a way it's like you work your whole life to get to this place and you're thinking, I'm free. Yeah. It's gonna be like the kids are gonna. We have this fantasy in our mind almost though. Mm-hmm. We imagine that they're gonna have a house with a white picket fence. They're gonna get married. Everything's gonna be nice. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, the way, like, if you look at what the world is selling them and telling them how things are, that's not the reality that they want.
Unfortunately.
No, and you're right. It's moving so fast, and there's so much stuff coming at you. It's just overloading your senses constantly.
Yeah,
and they make everything because everybody's trying to be louder than the next person. So everything is so loud and so sensational. Right, it's not reality.
Not reality.
Not reality.
We got to go back to the source. And what I mean by that is like so this summer, I hope you come. We're doing our Men's Health and Wellness Weekend, and we're going to be doing some sound healing. We're going to be doing yoga. We're going to be doing a drumming workshop. We're going to have we're going to do our fatherhood monologues workshop, where we write stories about being a father or being fathered. We're gonna I have this thing called speak life into a brother. We're gonna do about an hour of that.
Oh wow.
And we're gonna go on a hike. And so like we need to come and all of this stuff we're talking about is without our phones. It's like disconnecting from all that stuff for a certain amount of time to allow you to get back to the source. We, brothers like us, we need to spend some time reading the Quran, reading the Bible.
Yeah.
We need to spend some time praying. These are all like getting back to the source and away from everything that they're kind of like promoting in our faces, in our minds, because it's having a negative impact on our minds. We find ourselves, you go on the internet, right? And on the internet, it has the algorithm that like whatever you like the most is going to come to you,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but what happens is you find yourself competing with people, some of which you may not even know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You find yourself competing with somebody that you ain't seen for 20 years, but you went to high school with them. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you're looking at their life and you want their life to be your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So now you getting up every day and you're upset you because your life ain't kicking off like their life. And you don't know that their life is manufactured
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
for the screen.
Yes.
They just better at manufacturing it.
Yes.
And so we have to allow ourselves to get back to things that are not social media, not technology, not television, and get back to the source so that we can have peace. Because the peace is going to give us a lot more than all these other things that we kind of like put our time into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's very well said. And it's all getting back to the nature. Right?
Yeah.
Back to the nature.
Yeah, back to the nature. Get back to even like this. We're doing a podcast, but it's like having people together and talking.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not texting you, but
Right.
talking. We're gonna talk about it. We're talking about something that is not like it's a everyday conversation. One of the things that the reason I created the manhood tree was because like men will get together and we'll talk about sports. We'll talk about women. We'll talk about other people, but we won't talk about ourselves. We won't talk about our children. We won't talk about our goals and our hopes and our aspirations. And so hanging out with your friends becomes another waste of your time because you're just doing, it's almost like you're a little kid again. But it's like, we need to have spaces where men talk about real stuff, where we talk about how we're going to improve our community, how we're going to improve ourselves, what is it like to be married, and how do you keep that thing going? And so that's where my mind is like, how do we create that type of conversation? Because when you walk away from that conversation, you walk away full. This stuff that we're filling in ourselves now is like Chinese food. You eat it and you hungry 5 minutes later.
Yes.
And so
Right.
we need more heavy stuff in our lives, more heavy conversation, more heavy relationships, more responsibility. So like even having to take care of your granddaughter, right? That's like what we need right now is that responsibility to say it keeps your mind sharp. You got to get up. You got to do certain things. You don't want to do it. You figure you're going to kick your feet up. Nah, ain't no feet going up today. You got a little kid in the house. They need some breakfast. They need you to take them somewhere. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So I think that the source, like I was saying, we got to get back to the source and disconnect from all this other stuff, because most of the stuff that's going on ain't really about us anyways. They never planned for us to be a part of none of that stuff anyways.
That's right.
And so we can get ourselves too caught up in it. So because we get so caught up in it, we thinking it's like we a part of it. No. They're not talking about us.
No.
We need to focus on us in a different way.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, I know that you've had some health concerns. And
I'm one of the sickest people you know.
would you, and we would never know, by the way you are.
Yeah, though. I like to say that. Because on the outside, I don't present as a sick person.
Right.
But 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, for the first time I got kidney failure. So I was in graduate school. It was 1999. So in 1999, I got kidney failure for the first time. Now, leading up to that, I already had high blood pressure for a number of years. So when I was in my senior year in high school, they did an operation on me thinking that this operation would make my blood pressure go down. And so they went in and they found out that my kidney was blocked. So this is like, I'm like 17 years old. They said, oh, your kidney's blocked. We think if we unblock your kidney, your blood pressure will go down. Mm-hmm. And so me having a 17-year-old mind, this was my senior year in high school, and I was getting ready to start basketball season. Mm-hmm. So I thought, we'll do this operation. I got a month to get ready for basketball season, and I'll be back. But I never played basketball, organized basketball again, because after I had that operation, it obviously took more than a month to heal. Right. So I missed basketball season, and then my blood pressure didn't even go down. So at the time, they gave me some medication. And when I took the medication, it would make me feel dizzy. And so I decided, I'm not taking this medication. And I was about to go to college, so my parents weren't there to say, yo, take your medication. It was just me. Mm-hmm. So I decided I'm not taking the medication. So for the next 5 years, maybe 6 years, I went around, it was actually long. I graduated from high school in 1991. So it was about 8 years. So for the 8 years, basically I walked around with high blood pressure all the time.
Wow.
And so I never did anything about it, because after you get out of high school, you don't necessarily have to go to the doctor if you don't want to. So we talked about how men don't like pills. We don't like, okay. So I was like just going around, high blood pressure. But once again, I looked like I was in shape. Mm-hmm. I played basketball all the time, all of that kind of stuff. So one day I went to the basketball court, and I had probably one of the best basketball games of my life. I was doing everything you could think of. I was doing it. Laying people up, talking junk, alley-oops, everything. We won all the games that day. And so the next week, I went back to the gym, and I was excited because I was like, man, last time I was in here, I was like, Jordan up in this piece. Mm-hmm. And when I ran down the court, just, getting ready to play, for some reason, I couldn't breathe. And so I was like, man, my breath is not going good today. Mm-hmm. And so it was the month of Ramadan. Mm-hmm. So I was like, maybe it's because I haven't eaten. So I was still, playing ball, but it was like the middle of the day, and I had always done that. But it was a month of Ramadan, so I said, maybe it's something I should have ate breakfast, some days, did sahur. So I didn't play that day, and over the next 3 weeks, I would run up a flight of steps. Normally, this is stuff I would normally do, run up a flight of steps. When I get up there, I was out of breath, and it got worse and worse and worse. So finally, after about 3 weeks, I said, you know what? I need to go to the doctor. And so I go to the doctor, and when I get in there, the guy, they do the basic test. They do my blood pressure. My blood pressure is 210 over 160.
Wow.
So normal blood pressure is 120 over 80. So mine was almost double on the bottom and almost double on the top. And so they immediately put me into the ICU. And so I'm in the ICU, they're doing all these tests, and basically the doctor comes back and tells me I have kidney failure. So I'm like, what? How did I get? And so they say, you got to start dialysis immediately, because I was messed up. So, okay, so I start, they teach me, I was doing at-home dialysis. So I was in graduate school. I was in my last semester of graduate school, my kidneys fell, and I was living in Atlanta, and basically, I started doing dialysis, but when I was doing dialysis, I used to do CAPD dialysis. And CAPD dialysis, you do it at home, so it's just you. And the key was, I had this little tube in my peritoneum, and I had to connect the tube to this fluid. But if you didn't do a perfect connection every time, you will get something called peritonitis, and it was very painful. Mm-hmm. So it's basically like a stabbing pain. And so I started getting peritonitis a lot. And so I got to a point where I was like, I'm down here in Atlanta and I need some help. Mm-hmm. And so I made the decision to come back to Connecticut, because down in Atlanta, I had some friends down there, but it wasn't the same as having your mom and your dad.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back to Connecticut, and I was very upset about that, because my daughter lived in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be close to her, but I couldn't figure out a way around it where I was going to be able to be healthy and be there for her. So I said, I got to go home. That's the only place where I know I can get some help. So I came home, and basically I went from doing CAPD dialysis, because I could not doing the connection right, to doing hemodialysis. And I was against hemodialysis, because when you do hemodialysis, if you ever see somebody that has kidney failure, their arms be like all like bloated, right? Because they got to stick needles in your arms all the time. And so due to my vanity, I was like, I'm not doing that. But I kept having peritonitis, so I had to do it. So on the day I was supposed to get, they call it a shunt. I was gonna get a shunt put in my arm. I went to the doctor, and I was sitting out there, and I was thinking about, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do it. I was gonna leave. And so as I was sitting there contemplating like what I was gonna do, because if I wasn't gonna get the shunt and then I still go try to do CAPD, I was gonna have peritonitis all the time, which is very painful. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. And in the background, I hear, everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right now. Everything's gonna be all right. So I'm sitting there, and it's getting louder and louder and louder as I'm sitting in the car. And if you know, when the first times I wasn't paying attention to it, it was like I heard it, but I didn't necessarily register it. But by the time I kind of like locked in on it, he was like basically yelling, "Yeah, everything's gonna be all right." And I'm a believing man. I think sometimes, you know, Allah might speak to you, just, you know, that I felt that message was for me to go in there, get this shunt. And so I did it. I was like, oh, maybe God's trying to tell me something. So I went in, got my shunt, and I started going to dialysis. And you know, when you get on dialysis, I was probably like 190 pounds before I got kidney failure. But when I went to when I go to hemodialysis, I dropped to like maybe 160 pounds. And so physically I looked sick. Like, you know, this time around when I got kidney failure, it wasn't as bad. I didn't look, I actually looked better, but I looked sick. And so I remember, you know, one of my friends, like people were like, yo, I might be using crack. Cause I lost the weight very quick, you know, so I lost it very fast. And so I had kidney failure for 2.5 years, and one day I was joking around with my little sister, and I said to her, "Why don't you give me a kidney or hook me up with one of your girlfriends?" And she was like, "All right, I'll give you a kidney." And so my little sister did all the tests she needed to do, and on August 8th, 2003, I got a kidney from her. Wow. And like I said, I immediately popped back. I was like feeling good. I put my weight back on. The weight just came back on. I was feeling good. And I had that kidney for 20 years. Wow. Almost to the day, 20 years. And but then 20 years after that, so somewhere in between, one day I went to the doctor, like let's say it was like year 18. I went to the doctor, and my doctor was like, yo, you know your kidney's operated at 43%. And that was like a random, like usually I go to the doctor, I just go in there, they talk to me a little bit, and I said, I'll see you in 6 months. This time he's like, hey, your kidney operated at 43%. I was like, what the heck? And every time I would go back, it would be like, so instead of going for 6 months, he'd be like, why don't you come back in 3 months? Go back 3 months. He's like, yep, you're down to about 32%. I'm like, man, that's a pretty big drop off in the last 3 months.
Really?
So yeah. And so he kept saying, so basically it got down to like, I was like 19%. And I actually started feeling like, okay, I need to go back to dialysis. And I also was having these heart palpitations, and they wanted to put some dye in my heart, but if they put the dye in my heart, it was gonna make my kidney fail immediately. So I was like trying to like weigh it out. So they said, oh, you know what? We'll wait till your kidney fails before we do the dye test. And so the time is keep going, and I'm trying to make it to my 20-year anniversary. And I had a doctor's appointment, let's say a week after my 20-year anniversary with my kidney. But that last week, I was in bed the whole week because basically I was like, my body was breaking down. My kidney wasn't working. My heart wasn't working. I didn't know that my heart wasn't working, but it wasn't. And so when I go to that doctor's appointment a week after my 20-year anniversary, my doctor, I come in there and I could barely like walk. I'm like messed up. I'm actually in a wheelchair, I think. And he sees me and he's like, takes me to the emergency room immediately. And so I'm in the emergency room. They get me in the thing. They put the dye in my heart. My heart is blocked up. Two of my arteries in my heart blocked. And so I immediately go into surgery to have open heart surgery.
Wow.
So, and I wasn't expecting that. So open heart surgery. Then the next day I start dialysis and I'm in the hospital. And, this is at the time in the time between, my father had passed away in the hospital. My sister had passed away in the hospital. So here I am back on dialysis, open heart surgery. But within a week of that surgery, I was walking out the door.
Wow.
I wasn't doing good, but I was like, in my mind, you talk about mental health. Yeah. I didn't realize this, but I really was scared to be in the hospital because 2 people I love died in the hospital. Right. And I hadn't made the connection yet, but so basically I was like, yo, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. I don't care what y'all talking about. Because they were trying to determine, should you take this medication or that medication? I was like, yo, y'all should know what I should be taking. But I'm leaving today. And if it works, great. If not, I guess I'll be back, And so basically it worked, fortunately. And for the next 3.5 years, I had kidney failure. And initially, like, I'm a pretty popular person. Just in case, I don't know if you know that, but I'm pretty popular. So I was thinking that somebody would give me a kidney. Somebody like one of my friends, one of my people that I know, whatever. And there came a point within that 3 years where I was like, nobody's coming to save you. Like nobody's, they love you, but they don't love you like your sister. And she can't give you another kidney. And my brothers, they were all, they had their own stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm gonna get on the list. Because I wasn't planning on getting on the list because you never know what you're gonna get.
Right.
And so, but I was like, I don't want to keep going to dialysis. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you. If my nurses end up watching this, I'm not a good patient. Like I'm a tough patient. Like, so like people, I'm a friendly person in the world.
Right.
But when I used to go to dialysis, they used to hate to see me coming. Like I'm a mean guy sometimes. Oh. So it's like by the time, cause it's like all day I'm being upbeat, right, trying to be my best. When I get to dialysis, I used to be like, man, do your job. Y'all got a job to do. And so obviously people didn't like that. So it was 3 years of difficulties. Yeah. And actually towards the end, one day in dialysis, I coded out. Wow. It's crazy. Like I was like knocked out and they did their job, right, basically. Right. They did a great job. Mm-hmm. And I had to humble myself and start being nice to them. So I was nice to them for like the last month before I got a kidney. I even bought them some fruit. That's how happy they saved my life. So when you get on the list, it usually takes like a year, 18 months. Mm-hmm. But I finished all my paperwork in December. So I was ready. Like I was like, okay, it's gonna take a year or so, and I'll get a kidney. But then when the new year began this year, I started saying, this year I'm gonna get a kidney. I'm gonna get a kidney this year. It's just my destiny. I feel like this is my year. Mm-hmm. And this is me just talking. Yeah. But on January 23rd, wow, they called me at 2:00 in the morning and say, Abdul, we got a kidney for you. And when I got to the hospital, they told me they called 5 people before they called me. Wow. And they all said no. And I was like, hey, well, I guess when something's meant for you, they can't take it away no matter what. Right. And so I got a kidney on January 23rd. And by February 1st, I was walking out the hospital once again. I ain't staying in the hospital longer than a week. I had a whole meeting with the doctors. I was like, listen, man, I got the kidney. I'm healed up. I'm doing good. I'm leaving. Because they always try to keep you in there a couple more days. Yeah. And so I got out, and like I said, it took me about a month. After a month, went back to work, and I feel like I've been progressing ever since.
Wow, that is amazing.
That's a long story, but it's
It's amazing.
now it's like, my goal now though is number one, I want to, they when you get a kidney, a cadaver kidney, so the person that gave me the kidney passed away. And so when you get that type of kidney, they say it only lasts for like 10 years. Because like my other kidney was from my sister. Me and her were a 6 antigen match. So we were like, basically we have 6 antigens. She had the same 6 antigens as me.
Okay.
This person, they never even told me how many antigen matches, but it was a good match. And but my goal is to go beyond 10 years.
Right.
And I feel like it's like, okay, I've got a second chance here. And so it's like, what can I do physically, mentally, with the food I choose, all that kind of stuff to extend the life of this kidney?
Right.
Because I would prefer this be my last kidney and I just keep doing what I got to do to stay on top of it. Not to go to the doctor one day and he's like, you're operating at 43%.
Right.
No. So we do this blood work every couple weeks. We stay on top of it. We drink our water. We just did at my agency, we did a campaign called 2 liters to live. So my doctor told me I need to drink 2 liters of water every day and go for a walk every day. And so I never drank 2 liters of water before that. And so it's like, I feel like that was like a key that I didn't know about because, you got to keep your kidney working. It has to be pumping out. And so I feel like this is 3 months since I got my kidney. I feel pretty good. This morning I was dreaming about beating my son in basketball. And so I think I'm somehow my son is 6'2", 200. He lost some weight, but he's like 210 pounds right now. I feel like if I could get my soul, I mean, I got to do some weightlifting and stuff, but maybe by the end of the summer, before he goes to school, maybe I can catch one on him real quick.
Take him to school.
Yeah.
Take him to school. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what motivated you into entrepreneurship, and let's talk about your legacy in the community.
Well, I got into entrepreneurship because I'm not a good employee. I used to hate working for other people, and what really happened, I actually I got into my supervisor at the time. She was like getting on me, and so in my mind I said, who does this lady think she is? So I decided that I was gonna quit right then and there. So you know how somebody thinks they got the upper hand on you, so they talking to you in your kind of way. But I wanted to show her, you don't have the upper hand on me. So I was like, you know what? I quit. How about that? And then I got up and I left the job. Now after I quit, I was like, oh crap, man, I ain't got no job now. About a week later, her supervisor called me and told me that they might have another position for me in a different department. And so I got a job in a different department. So I went from being an intensive family preservation social worker to being a social worker at a new program called Eagle House. It was like a residential program. But from the moment I took that new job, I was saying, I'm going to start my own business. I knew that what happened was, at the agency I worked at, they had a vice president position. And I applied for the vice president. My father was when he worked there, he was one of the vice presidents. So I applied for the vice president position, and they gave me the interview because I was my father's son.
Yes.
But it wasn't a serious interview, And so that made me mad too. So I was mad about the lady thinking she could talk to me in no kind of way. I got this new job. I don't really like it that much. And then they give me this interview, and this guy, he's sitting in like this in the interview. And I'm like, why is he sitting like that? Why are you trying to interview me, man? And so I just made the decision, okay, the only way you're going to be happy is if you can do work for yourself. So initially, my plan was, I was into fatherhood. This was I was into fatherhood. And so I said, I'm going to create a fatherhood program. And it was probably one of the first fatherhood programs that, you know, in I don't know if it was the first in the state, but there weren't a lot of fatherhood programs at the time. And I used to go around to different meetings trying to promote my fatherhood program. I actually got another job, but the guy that gave me the job, his name is Andrew Woods. He said to me, "This is only going to be for 6 months, so you got to make something happen." And it ended up being like 4 months. So but then 4 months, that job was over. But I had like an epiphany in my business. I knew that even though I was interested in fatherhood, the people I was trying to sell it to weren't interested in fatherhood yet.
Right.
And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna start a mentoring program. I'm gonna start doing intensive home-based therapy. And so one day I went into the office, and at the time our office was like this corner of your room. It was just me. It was like from here to your chair. That was our whole office. Yeah. And I had a huge desk in the middle of the floor. So I went in there and I said, you know what? We know we need 100 staff. And my second in command, he was like, "What are you talking about? Where are you going to get 100 staff from? What are you going to do with 100 staff?" I said, "We're going to do mentoring, and we need 100 staff." And he's like, so we're going to put an ad in the paper or something. I was like, I don't know how we're going to get them, but we're going to hire these people and the work is going to come. It's almost like if you build it, they will come.
Right.
Yes.
So this was in maybe June 2005. That's when I said that. By December 2005, I had 100 staff.
Wow.
People used to walk in my office and I'd give them a job on the spot. This is before, we knew that we had to do the background check.
Right.
We were just hiring people.
Right.
And it was like in a way, it was like we were almost out of business before we really got in business, because we hired a few people. They had felonies. There was like all types of stuff. And but it's like when you started something from scratch, you can have the passion, but you may not know you may not dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Yes.
You're just trying to make it happen.
Right.
So so initially my father came on board, who had a lot of experience. I initially wasn't letting my wife come. She had just had a baby, but my wife is a logistical person. Like, she's a person gonna find out the way you have to do something. Me, I'm just like yo, let's do this. I'm like, let's make it happen. I got this idea. Let me pitch it to you. I'm a salesman. She's more of a thinker. Like, I'm not that much of I think a little bit, but I'm more of a go.
Yes.
Right.
And so, but over time, all those people, my dad, Eugene, my wife, me, we were able to fall into our positions. And, my people took off. It was like, we went from our first year, we made $500,000. Next year we made $1 million, and it was just like up. And so it was like we were doing so much services and kind of like building the ship as we were going.
Yes.
And I wouldn't change anything about that. I think it was a unique time where the door was open. They left the door open by mistake. They didn't realize they left the door open. And it was so many black-owned agencies at that time that had gotten in the door with DCF, and we were really doing some good work. And it was like one of those things where every person would like an opportunity like that, where they could come up with their own ideas, and some of the ideas worked, some of them didn't work, but nobody said you guys are bad because this idea didn't work.
Right.
It was just like, come up with another idea.
Right.
So they in a way they needed us and I'm saying I'm putting a time limit on it, because it was about a 10-year window where you could just come up with an idea and they'll meet with you and they'll just, and I attribute this to Michael Williams, who right now he's like the deputy commissioner of DCF, but at the time he was the office director of the Hartford office, and he just was open to ideas, open to people doing stuff. And I'm sure there was some mistakes made during the time, not by us, by other agencies, but ultimately I think that in that time our community got some of the best service they ever could have gotten by it's like, you know, FUBU is for us, by us. That's what we were doing for our community during that time. It was wonderful. And so over the years, you know, we've tightened up all of our systems, and you know, we formulated our nonprofit. So that gives you different types of opportunities than being a for-profit. And like I said before, you know, our main thing we do now is supportive housing for young adults. And, you know, we have 6 housing programs in Hartford, for 5 in Hartford, 1 in East Hartford. And what we ultimately try to do is help these young people transition from our program to independence in the best way that we possibly can. And I'm very excited. Like I said, we have a lot of things on the horizon that are that should take us in other ways. And so for anybody that's listening, that's thinking about entrepreneurship, I would say, you know, keep throwing stuff at the wall till something hits. You know, because that's really if you have the time,
right.
You know, like it wasn't like I was saying like I got to make this much money so that, you know, it was like, no, we're just gonna kind of go with the flow and build and grow as we build and learn. You know, we're gonna make some mistakes, but we're gonna get back up, and you know, we're gonna support other people that are trying to do good things in the community. And so it's like a liberating feeling coming from the type of systems that we used to be a part of to being able to be our own boss, and nobody could tell us what to do.
Right.
We just do what we think is right for our community.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one of my first encounters, and first time that I met you, or my first encounter with you, was that you were on the news with your father.
Oh.
And you and your father were, at that time, going into homes, teaching men how to be fathers in the home.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought that program was very amazing, right? I thought I was just blown away when I saw that, because I'd never seen it. I've never ran across anyone that was coming and giving that type of work, right? Coming in and actually coming into the home and teaching the person how to implement and how practical that was.
Right.
Most of the time you see people and they're up there and they got a chalkboard and they got some pamphlets they hand out and they're talking to you and this is what you do.
Right.
No, to me that was like really personal, like very personal and practical to come in. I'm not just going to talk to you about it. I'm going to come in here and show you how to do it.
That's right.
And I think I found that to be amazing. So I fast forwarded some years, because at that point, that's when I really started. Just you came across my radar, and I don't know if but I followed you since. I found you very inspirational in my life, right? And your inspiration has me here, where I'm sitting, and a lot to do with that. But I remember I was in a program. And it was actually a fatherhood program, and you and your father were there, together, and it was very powerful, very powerful. I don't think after the end of it, I don't think that there was a dry eye in the room. And I remember your father, and he got up and he talked about being a father. He talked about you, and I remember him saying that when you were, as a young man, that you constantly came with ideas.
Yeah.
You were like full of ideas, and you would try it, it didn't work, and then you come back and and he would encourage you to go and implement those ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the type of that support system.
Yes.
Right. That support, having that support helps to propel you, and helps to mold you, and helps you to have that confidence.
Right.
Right. To be able to go out there and tackle the world.
It does.
Yes.
Right? To be able to go out and do
also being able to see it.
Right.
So it's not just, he didn't just tell me I could do something. His whole life, like I tell people, when I was a kid, he had an organization called Peace Associates. And if you ever saw the brochure for Peace Associates, I was like the vice president of Peace Associates. And so even from a young kid, I saw myself in a position, a high position.
Right.
So the only person above me was my dad.
Right.
And so it's like being able to think of yourself that way. And then I think the other thing is that like having really nothing to lose. In a way, it's like if my people didn't work out, I would have tried something else. It's not like I was gonna, because people don't know My People Clinical Services. Before I had My People Clinical Services, I had a greeting card company called My People's Urban Cards.
Really?
So I used to sell greeting cards, like they were like African American greeting cards, and it was called My People's Urban Cards. And so I took from the My People's, because when I started My People, I was gonna call My People My People's, but Eugene said people that was too phonetically black, like it was too much.
Yeah.
And but if you ever hear somebody talk about my agency, they be like, that's My People's. They don't even know they're doing it, but it's natural for them to do it. Right. So we have the professional My People, but anybody that talks about our organization, they always call it My People's. And the whole point of that is that if you know, you know.
Right.
So if you know that you My People's, then we good.
Right.
And so that was the whole concept of the agency, is that like we're close to you. We're your peoples. And so you can trust us with your clients. You can trust us with your secrets. We're going to be able to do this work for you because we're really committed to the people we're serving. They're with us, you know. It's not just checking a box. We want to get in there with you. And so I think that helped us out as well. It's just, you know, once you have a little bit of success, you know, you see something that you're trying to do actually coming to fruition, all the talk, all the things, everything from the past goes away. You can see the future now. You're like, we're going to take this thing. And then think about it. 20 years is just going by.
Yes.
Wow.
And here and it's 20 years. I still had to get kidney failure. I still had to get a new kidney, but the time still went by.
It went by.
And here we are 20 years later. My wife, she's like, she went from when we started My People, she didn't even have an associate's degree.
Wow.
She didn't have now 20 years later, she has a doctorate degree, and she's had it for like 5 years.
Wow.
And so it's like time is one of the greatest things you could ever have, is time.
Right.
Just give us a little time. And if you have an idea and you work that idea, you just keep working it. And the other thing is, you talked about community. It's like, you know, in our communities, because it's not just Hartford, it's all the communities. You need people that are like doing something.
Right.
Yes.
You need somebody to be able to look at and say, that dude right there is doing something.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, for about 10 years, I used to have an ice cream truck. You know about my ice cream truck?
No, I didn't know about the ice cream truck.
So I had an ice cream truck, and what I would do is I go into the community and I would exchange ice cream for dreams. So you tell me your dream, I'll give you ice cream.
Wow.
Wow.
And so My People enabled me to be able to do that. Whereas, you know, on any good, like a day like today, I might be on my ice cream truck. And then one day I was on my ice cream truck, and this young man came up to my ice cream truck, and he was like, yo, you know, what's up, man? I'd like to do this. I do this ice cream truck. And every time, that happened a lot. But this one young man, I say, you know what? Give me a call. Cause this is my information. Stop by my office. We'll talk about you getting on this ice cream truck. Now, when he met me, he didn't know that I had a whole agency. You know, like, he just thought I was doing this ice cream thing.
Right.
But he shows up, and this young man, his name is Matthew Rivera, and he took over my ice cream truck. For like the last 3 or 4 years, he ran the ice cream truck.
Wow.
But it wasn't like I just gave him the keys. I basically trained him up. I taught him how to do the ice cream truck. I taught him how to have a few presentations. I taught him how to do that. We came up with this idea called Dream Chaser Days. I taught him how to do that. And up until he's about to graduate from Yale in next month.
Wow.
With his master's degree. And
kudos to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's going to be moving to Philadelphia to work with a church out there. But it's like, these opportunities, everything I've been able to do is because number one, remember the guy told me everything was going to be all right? He wasn't just talking about that day.
You're right.
Yes.
Right.
So, you know, as Muslims, we believe through adversity comes relief.
Yes, it does.
So whenever adversity come, I'm not one to get scared of adversity because I know there's some relief around the corner, and the relief might be something greater than you could even imagine.
Right.
Like I couldn't have planned on none of this stuff when I was at my kitchen table trying to come up with my people. I wouldn't be able to think, we serve thousands of people. I put somebody through college. I got another guy. He's gonna be Matt. You remember that name, Matthew Rivera? He's gonna be somebody, like somebody in the world. You're gonna hear his name again. That's how great this kid is.
Wow.
And so, I think that and we've employed 1,000 people, and maybe more in the last 20 years. And so it's like. When I was coming up with the idea, I was like, I just want to be able to not have to have somebody over me.
Right.
That was my goal, just not to have nobody trying to tell me what to do.
Right.
But in that time, I think we've made a difference. We made an impact, and that's the you talk about legacy. If somebody says that Abdul was a part of something that made an impact, a positive impact in our community. That's the greatest legacy you could have.
Right.
Well, and I think that would be said with
well, we'll see. I still got a little time. We'll see what happens. I might ruin the whole thing. I still got time to mess this thing up. Give me another 20 years.
Yeah,
see what happens.
For sure. But just on what's going on and what's already been done have been impactful in the community.
Yeah.
And just when you talk about coming in and serving and having that. You could be trusted with the client. You could be trusted. I often look at it this, and we come from the same faith. Mm-hmm. So I look at it this way: when you've been trusted, right? And all of this is a trust,
right?
Right. The wisdom, the knowledge, the insight you've been given, the path you've been selected for, that's a trust. Mm-hmm. I'm here. I work in senior care, and that's a trust, right? To be able to be trusted with a population that's vulnerable, right? This is a trust from Allah. This is a trust from God. Mm-hmm. So we believe, we believe that when we stand on the day of judgment, we're going to have to stand before God and answer for what we did with this trust.
That's right.
Right, so it's big. Yeah, we're there. We do it because we love what we do. We love the people. We love it. But at the end of the day, we know that there's a level of accountability for what we're doing, right? And we subscribe to a lifestyle that calls us to a higher level of integrity to begin with.
That's right.
I don't think most people imagine the level of integrity that Islam calls you to aspire to, right? Sometimes we're able to attain it. Sometimes maybe we're not always able to attain it. Yep. But just the aspiration of it right, makes you a better human being, a better person.
That's right.
And I don't think a lot of people really understand that.
Right.
So you're also a poet.
I do poetry from time to time.
Right. Now, what inspired you to get into poetry?
You know what? One day I was in an open mic and I was watching the people do poetry, and I was like, I could do that. That was it. I was like, I said I should probably be up there doing that. So I went home and I wrote some poems, and then after that, I really got into it for a while. For a while, I was like going to open mics and stuff like that. I don't necessarily. It's funny. I always try to tell people like I don't do poetry as much, but I actually do poetry almost every day. Like I did because we have the fatherhood monologues, and whenever I share my fatherhood monologue, it's like poetry.
Right.
And so I still. I was at a conference maybe like 3 weeks ago, and I have a number of poems it was a fatherhood conference. So I just did, I before I start doing my speech, I just throw a little poetry on them real quick. So it's not like I go to open mics and stuff like that, but I go into like arenas where people aren't expecting poetry, but they get some. And people like, anything with a little rhythm to it, they like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take you back.
Yep.
Do you remember soapbox poetry?
Of course I remember soapbox poetry.
That was another one of your things. Yeah. Greeting cards. You also had a CD that was soapbox poetry.
And a book.
And the book to go with it. Absolutely. Yeah. Did a well-rounded, very, very well-rounded person. So can we get a little taste?
Poetry.
Sure.
It was a little something.
Let's see. I got to think of a poem I'm going to remember to the end. This is one I like. We should be raising children and praising children. We would have some amazing children, potential reach to the ceiling. New communities I'm building, negativity I'm shielding, no more hating and pain and killing. I'm turning crooks into books with the worms in it. I'm turning thieves into kids that make A's and B's while they lead. No more getting felonies, hating and the jealousy. My brothers and sisters helping me. That's the way it's supposed to be. I bring my people close to me. My people means the most to me. I just want my folks to see unity. That's the key. The only thing in life that's for free is LOVE. Not to mention the air we breathe. It's time for us to roll up our sleeves. It's time for us to go out and achieve. It's time for us to really believe there's something we could do to change these things. We really need to rearrange our dreams. Stop sleeping, wake up. You know what I mean? They stopping us with all of their schemes. They're telling us we can't do anything. They're holding us back. They're pulling us down. They're turning our smiles into some frowns. They got us made up like we are some clowns. They made us forget we wear beautiful crowns. And we're taking it, not making a sound like we're in the water and we're being drowned. Like we're in a fight and we're being pounded. We might as well be 6 feet underground. Everything that is lost is not always found. What goes around, don't always come back around. I'm standing here on top of the mound and asking, no begging, out to the whole crowd. Do something right now. Don't wait. The world is hurting. You can make a change, just you, if you hurry. Free your mind and your soul and let's help everybody. We should be loving children and hugging children. No more having bugging children, pulling slugs from our children. Back to setting curfews. No more saying words that hurt you, stopping all the pain and the single mother blues, using our brains as tools, minding our kids like the jewels. Imagine what we'll find if we cultivate their minds. Father, spend a little time. Let them know in this crazy world, everything will be fine. It should be a crime not to be kind. Love our children so much that they shine till we're blind.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that is nice.
So we have this thing that we do that we call upon all our guests, and it's called the lightning round. And in the lightning round, we ask a couple questions, and we want you to give the first answer that comes to mind.
Cool.
All right. So I'm going to ask a series of questions. I'm going to come at you pretty quick. So give me the answer.
I'm pretty fast. Go ahead. Let's see what you got.
All right. So give us a mantra that you live by.
Never stop dreaming.
A ritual that keeps you grounded.
Prayer.
One thing you wish every human being knew.
They can do anything.
What's one gift chronic illness gave you?
Patience.
Aging in one word.
Slow.
All right. All right.
Excellent.
So I don't know how you find all the hours in the day to accomplish all the things that you've done.
Right. Wow.
Very amazing individual, very inspirational, very interesting.
Let me tell you this. I heard something very interesting today. We all have the same amount of time as Beyonce. Think about what Beyonce got to do in a day. But we got the same 24. And so it's just, you know, sometimes like I actually feel like right now I'm slowing down. Like I'm not moving as fast as I used to. I used to move pretty fast. I was doing a lot of stuff. But the reality is that when you're like excited and motivated about your life, you just want to take a little taste of everything. You want to do a little bit of everything. And so there's no barriers. Like you said, I could be the executive director. I could be an ice cream truck driver. I could be a poet. I could be a father. I could be a good husband. I could be a leader in the community. I could choose all the roles I want, as long as at every place I show up at the best version of myself. I give it all, give them 100%. And so it's like, if we're only going to get this one life, I feel like people need to tap in. I feel like they need to go ahead and go for it. It's like, why wouldn't you want to try everything in this limited time? Because time be moving so fast. 20 years goes by like this.
Yes.
And so you might as well go ahead and give it a shot. Whatever you want to try, and then one thing about me, I'll do something for 5 years and then all of a sudden I won't do it no more.
Right.
That's okay. 5 years I was hot and heavy with it. Move on.
Absolutely.
It's something else.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. I think that's the truth. And there are 24 hours a day for everyone.
For
What are you
everyone.
going to do with your time? And
you could get up you can get up a little bit later. You can stay up a little bit later. But the reality is when you get into a flow, there used to be days where everything I just said, I would do it in a day. There might be a day where I go to my office, I go do some poetry, I get on my ice cream truck, I got to see my kids. You know, like all of that stuff was happening in one day.
Wow.
And so, but it's like, I wasn't sitting there saying like, damn, I got a lot to do today. No, I was just, I'm just going with the flow. And so, and each one of the things, I love it in a certain way.
Right.
And so when you love what you do, it's never like work. It's never difficult. So too many people, they do it for the love of money. They do it because they gotta do it. Make your life one where it's like you have a choice. When you got a choice, it's totally different than when you don't got a choice.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's, you know what? We're gonna end on that note.
Never stop dreaming.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
That's good stuff.
We'd like to thank Brother Abdul for coming in and spending time with us on our podcast, and we have to have you back.
Yes.
We will have you back. And
I love to talk. Anytime you want me to come, I'll come.
oh, absolutely, and we also want you to bring your wife, because I definitely would love to talk to her, and kudos to her on getting her doctorate.
Yes.
That's a major accomplishment.
Yeah.
Sure is.
I wish I wanted to go back to school to get more degrees, but I'm not there right now. Maybe one day.
Yeah, you never know.
But I want to travel. That's traveling the world. But thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. That concludes this episode of our podcast for the day, Aging Graciously and Hilariously. I will say that if you are in the Middletown area, make sure you stop by the Main Street Marketplace building on Main Street. There are 4 great restaurants and some great specialty stores inside the building. This episode has been sponsored by A Touch of Love Home Care, where we put compassion in every action, love in every touch. Also, if you're looking for office space, make sure you contact Mike Stone at the Main Street Market building. There are some great office spaces available. It is a great community and a great place to launch and grow your business. On that note, have a nice day. If you like this content, please make sure you like and subscribe to our podcast. Have a great day.